Thanks everyone for joining the webinar. I'm really excited to talk about this topic today because it's been a result of a scorecard that was completed. So some of you who are here today will have completed the quiz, a quiz that was sent out. Good evening, Ravi. A quiz that was sent out to people to complete in relation to growing their business. We had a fantastic response. I was actually quite shocked with the number of people who responded, because I did it with very short notice, but we managed to get over 50 respondents, which was actually fantastic. So that's people who are running care businesses, different types of things that they're doing. Some are doing supported living, some are doing home care, care homes, complex care. So we had a really good mix of respondents, which was absolutely fantastic and helped me to shape this presentation. So I'm hoping that it's something that's going to be beneficial to people based on the responses that we received. So my name is Ruth Mabika Johnson. I'm the co-founder of S&P Care, a home care company that is based in Buckinghamshire. And I'm also the co-founder of Care Business Hub, which is really a community a network to try and bring people together, ambitious care business owners coming together to share different. I see something's being written. Someone's writing something somewhere. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, so so Care Business Hub is a platform that brings ambitious care business owners together. It's an opportunity for people to share ideas, ask any questions, and to learn. So there's a lot of learning that's involved, particularly around issues that are a challenge to us care business owners. And it's something that's a passion project of mine that I've set up really based off of the experience that I've had over the last 5 years running my own care business. I've enjoyed the journey. It's been really a fantastic opportunity, and it's grown well. Our care company is quite highly regarded in Buckinghamshire, and we've won multiple awards. So really very proud of that. But one of the things that was challenging for me in setting up was actually finding support, and just the loneliness of that entrepreneur journey was quite stark. So Care Business Hub was born out of that, just to try and support other people, not to have to go through what I went through. So I'm really quite excited about this. And as I say, the presentation today is actually based off of feedback that we had from people from the survey that we sent out. So just to sort of kick us off, I wonder, I don't know whether this sounds familiar to people. If you can respond in the chat. You've set up your care business, that honeymoon period where it's like, oh, I'm managing myself now, I'm my own boss and all this stuff. That bit has gone by. You've now got your clients, you're set up and up and running. And then you find that things are a little bit tricky in terms of managing your staff. So you can't take a day off without something going wrong. You feel that the staff are coming to you for every single small decision. And you're the only one who can solve the problems. Everything comes to you throughout the day, and you're stuck, you're firefighting, instead of leading and coaching staff. And you also yourself, you feel that you're the only one who can do it properly. If anyone else does it, it's not done to your standards or to your expectations. So you then feel that you have to micromanage and you have to do everything yourself. So that's quite a common scenario that people find themselves in when they're running care businesses. And the scorecard, as I said, it did pretty much talk about this. Only 39% of the people who responded said that their team takes initiative without any supervision, and that the team is actually very reliant on them. And The reality is that's not a sign of failure. It just means that your business is highly dependent on you, and it still depends on you too much. So the answer then is in what we're trying to talk about today. So the goal today is to build clarity and ownership. So we're going to talk about building clarity and ownership in your team. We're going to talking about, we'll cover coaching instead of controlling. And we're also going to look at how to build trust and accountability. And then eventually you can step back without losing control. That's the whole idea. So hopefully we'll be able to cover all those bits for you in this presentation today. So starting off, if we can just look at why teams become dependent in the first place. So there's constant firefighting, and there's no time for coaching. So you're sort of stuck in this loop, especially in the early days when you're starting to set up your business and you're trying to work out which direction to go. It's very much firefighting. You're setting up the team, you're trying to build it, and you've just not got any time for coaching because you just want things done at the pace, and you just want to grow. Another reason is you'll find that staff are often not clear about what their roles are, what are the outcomes, what are the expectations. So they're just being told to do a job, but they're not really clear on exactly what it is that they're supposed to be doing. Or you as the owner, you're holding all the information because this is your baby, it's your passion project. You've been doing it from day one, and you have in your mind exactly how you want things done. So you've got all of that information, but you're not actually disseminating that information. And then the staff are afraid of getting wrong. They feel like if they get it wrong, they're going to be told off. There's blame culture and all of that. These are often things that actually cause dependence on the team. And it's worth thinking about what happens if we're not there. I just thought we'd have a little pause really to say, if you disappeared for a week from your company and you were not available for some reason, what would actually stop working in your business? And that's something that I used myself when I was at a crossroads of just constantly firefighting and constantly trying to run the business. You're working in the business instead of on the business. So if you did disappear for a week, what would actually stop working in your business? I don't know if anyone would like to share or say anything in the chat. Anything at all, guys? No, we're very quiet today. So the point of it is, if you do actually stop and consider what would happen, quite often you'll find that people are very dependent on you to the point that you actually cannot step away from your business. And if you think about it, that's not the reason why you set up your company. You set up your company likely because you wanted to provide excellent care. You wanted to have freedom and the ability to be able to work it on your own terms and be able to step away from your business. But when you've actually got a team that is so dependent on you, it makes it really difficult for you to actually step away. So it's important to take that pause and think, okay, what's actually going to stop in my business? And if you find that your business is going to grind to a halt because you're not there, then you definitely need to do something about it. Yeah. I'm just going to pause because I can see that there are some responses in the chat, but I can't see them all. Okay, let me have a look. Okay, so we've got recruitment levels would reduce, nobody would be recruiting. The understanding that our recruitment is ongoing. So if I step away without understanding, I fear that recruitment search would reduce. So that's a very, very important point, really. And that's one of the things that could go wrong. So you've got recruitment, no one is actually going to recruit when you're not available. It could be the care delivery is actually not going to be to the standards that you want when you're not available. It could be the finance, the invoicing is not being done properly, the timesheets are not being done properly. So you're concerned that your business is actually going to grind to a halt. And that's not a way to operate your business. So really, you need to start looking at systems that will support you in getting to that stage. So one of the cornerstones that I have used personally, so I've got this process where there's 3 key cornerstones that I look at when supporting staff and getting them to a point of independently managing when you're not there. So the first one really is around clarity and ownership. What I find is there's a dependency that comes from uncertainty. If people are not sure what they need to do, they become unwilling to actually step outside and think for themselves, if you will. One of the things, again, that came through the scorecard was people were saying that they don't have enough, they don't have clear standard operating procedures. So if you don't actually have procedures that you can hand over to somebody and say, this is how this is done. When a client is referred, this is the process. This is how we carry out our assessments, and you give them a step-by-step guidance. You need to be able to have those processes clearly laid out in such a manner that if you're not there, somebody can pick up that process, follow it through, and actually do it in the manner that you would have done it. So you're giving the step-by-step guidance, and you're actually explaining to them how they do it as well. There might be a particular approach that you're using because you've got your own values in your company and your own specific approach and the things that are important to you when you're doing your assessments. So you want to be able to go through that, and someone can pick that document up, they can follow it through, and they can do it exactly the way that you would have done it. And when staff actually understand what good looks like in this way, they gain confidence and they act, and they're able to do things independently. So that clarity, it fuels confidence, and that confidence, it fuels initiative. When staff are able to use their own initiative, that then starts to free you as a director, as an owner of the business. So defining what that good looks like is really very important. And also trying to link the role to the outcomes. So you're not just talking about the tasks when you're explaining to somebody. So, sticking with that assessment example, it's not just about saying, go out and do this and carry out this assessment, follow these tasks through. What you're looking to do is explain what the outcomes are. What are we expecting to get out of that whole process? By the time that person has finished the assessment, what information is actually required? Do you have a good understanding of the risks? Do you have a good understanding of the person's needs, their preferences, so that you can actually do a very personalized care plan for them? So you're now looking at the outcomes. It's not just about going in there and ticking boxes and saying, I've done this, I've asked these questions here. What is the purpose of that person asking those questions? And give them that clarity, explain all that right from the outset. Another example is a simple example that I've put on there is around rota management. So it could be that you give an instruction to somebody. There's a big difference between saying to someone, make sure everything's covered on the rota and the rota's out on time. You could alternatively give a very specific instruction that says the rota needs to be published by Thursday at 12 noon. I need you to have checked it for continuity. I need you to have checked it for skill mix, for client preferences, and it needs to be signed off and ready to publish. That's much more specific. And when you do get the rota, it's going to have all those elements incorporated instead of you giving a very vague instruction like make sure everything is covered on the rota and it's sent out on time. So that clarity is really the very first cornerstone. If you can get that step right, you're already partway through to resolving the whole issue. The next cornerstone is around coaching. So once you've actually been clear with everybody about how they should be doing their role, what are the different tasks that are involved, you've explained to them what the outcomes are, what the expectations are, then the next thing to do is to actually start coaching them. So you're no longer just instructing people and telling them what to do. You're now actually getting them to think for themselves. So they need to be able to take those standard operating procedures or those instructions you've given them and apply them to different scenarios. Now, if all you're doing is giving instructions, when someone is, and sticking with the initial assessments example, if you've actually just given somebody a script of what to do and they go into an assessment and something comes that's left field, or you've got a relative or a family member who asks something that's not quite in line with what information you've given, that actually makes it difficult for somebody to think if you're actually instructing them as opposed to supporting them and coaching them. What does actually help, what I've found helps, is asking people questions. So what do you think about it? What do you suggest? How do you think we could resolve this? And that they're the ones who are actually at the coalface. They're the ones who are dealing with the clients on a day-to-day basis. So they will come up with the answers. They're better placed to give you the best resources, the best results, and and actions to take in relation to that particular issue. So you need to be encouraging that problem-solving approach, encourage them to reflect and have a think about how could they actually deal with it? And replacing that, do it with this way, with what do you think? And what you want to be doing is you're allowing them and enabling them to start using their own judgment. And when they use their own judgment and you give them that freedom, they have a sense of accountability as well, because they know they've brought the idea to you. So they feel that they've got a vested interest in making it work, which is really important. So coaching becomes really the bridge between clarity, knowing what to do, and the next stage, which is trust, being allowed to actually do it. So make sure that you're sharing the responsibility. You're not just giving them the work and they're ticking through tasks. They are actually a part of the decision making, which actually supports people to grow and develop. And so that leads us nicely into trust and accountability. So that becomes your third phase. You're looking at someone who's had the clarity, they've been coached, and they now know how to apply those instructions and directions to different scenarios. The next thing that you need to do is to actually trust them. There's no point, supporting them and coaching them through it, and you're still continuing to micromanage them. So once that clarity is in place and the coaching is in place, you do need to let go. One of the things that kills accountability and kills creativity from the staff is micromanagement. You're then watching them every step of the way and making sure that they've done every little thing correctly. You need to give people space, allow them to make errors. It's from the errors that you actually start learning lessons. and that person continues to grow. If they make mistake, you sit down, you actually debrief, you have a look at it to see, okay, how can we approach this differently next time? And again, you're asking them and asking them to reflect and asking them to learn from that. And by you giving them that space to make their own decisions, that level of accountability actually increases, and they become more and more independent, and they're not reliant on you. um, you're it frees you. It just frees you, because you get to a point where you're not having to answer every little thing, because they already know the answers. So one of the experiences that we had when we started our care business was, because again of that passion that we had when we originally set up, we were very, very hands-on in the early days. And what we found is, because we wanted things to be done a particular way and we had very high standards around how things were done, we got to a point where we were inundated and the carers were contacting us for permission for everything, because they needed to make sure that they were doing things right. Whilst in the first few weeks that was helpful, but at some point in time it becomes too much, and it is a heavy burden to constantly be giving people permission for every little thing. So what we decided to do is we decided to change our approach. Rather than giving them the answers every time they contacted us and they asked for permission for various things, or asked for information, or how am I going to do this, or we would say, what do you think we should do? What's your suggestion? You're the one who's actually in the field. You're the one who's with the client. What do you think we should do? And we would talk through those different ways of them approaching it. And by the time they'd finished doing that, if they went into another scenario where they were faced with exactly the same issues again, they actually knew how to manage it. And they were able to come back and feedback to us, oh, this happened again. And you would see it in their notes as well. This happened again, and this is how I dealt with it. And that actually shows learning. And that's how you actually start to allow people you trust them to do the work. And what we noticed was, within a month of us changing that approach, the level of dependence actually reduced. We had a reduced number of phone calls, which was great. So that's something that I was quite excited about. So just in summary, really, what you'll see is that when you're looking at proactivity, clarity is your first step. Clarity, your team understands what what good looks like, and it is very much. You can see it as a triangle. You can see it as a step-by-step flow, where one leads to the other and then the next. So it starts with clarity, knowing what success looks like, and then through coaching, they gain the confidence and the capability to be able to do it themselves. And with the trust that you set up, you then allow yourself to step back, because now you're fully aware that they're able to do what you've asked them to do. So that's exactly how your business moves from dependency to leadership. And once these three aspects actually work together, you end up not losing control and you gain your freedom. So I hope that's helpful in terms of framing, the issue, and answers some of the questions and the discussion that we had previously. So again, I'd like to pause a little bit and reflect on what the next step could be for you. So given what I've discussed and what we've talked about around clarity, around coaching, and around trusting the staff, what is the one thing that you could stop doing for your team and coach them to handle instead? I'd be very interested to hear what people have to say about that. So again, I'm going to go to the chat and see if there's anything to discuss around that. Okay, there's a comment I missed earlier. Somebody said, I worry that no one in the team understands the business and the processes like I do. Yeah, that's certainly a common theme there where I think, like I said earlier, because I'm a perfectionist and I like things done just right and I like things done in a very particular way, I do find myself in this cycle where I do things myself instead of actually delegating and allowing other people to do it. And then I become rushed off my feet. And then I remember, oh, I've got a team around me, need to get people involved and, get them to support me. And that's because I'm constantly thinking, well, I'm the only one who can actually do it this way. But you find that when you actually take that step and you allow people to do it, they're not going to do it exactly the way that you do it, because we all have our different approaches and our different ways of working, but the outcome is going to be the same. So ultimately, if you're looking for someone to do a thorough initial assessment where the client's needs and preferences have been considered, where the risk assessments have been completed and they're balanced, and the client is happy and assured that you're going to be providing the care that they need, then how they do that, they're going to use their own approach to doing that. They're not going to use the same style, the same flair or not flair. Everyone has their own different way of doing it. But if you then allow them to do that, they can do it themselves and they still bring the good outcome. I've got someone else who's asked there who said, so is micromanagement bad? So from my experience, I would say it's not the way to go. What micromanagement does is, I think, quite often, especially in the early days of setting up your business, like I said earlier, you're very passionate about how you want things done. You've been the visionary of this service. You're the one who's set it up. You have a really good idea of where it is that you want it to go to. And you own the business, whether you've bought it, whether you've set it up yourself from the start. You have a very clear vision, and it's sometimes difficult to actually articulate that to people. And what you end up doing is micromanaging and watching every step of what everybody is doing. One, you simply don't have enough hours in the day to do that. As your team grows and as your service grows, you simply cannot physically follow people around and chase everything that they're doing. So you have to prepare yourself for that time that your business is actually growing. And the bigger your business becomes, the harder it becomes to actually micromanage. And once you've micromanaged people, what you're teaching them in that process of micromanagement is, you can't do anything without me. So they do repeatedly learn that they have to come to you for everything. So one way or another, every interaction that you're having with a member of staff, you're actually teaching them something, whether it's deliberate or not. So in that interaction that you're having with them, where they're coming to you and they're saying, how am I going to do this? What should I do? You're actually teaching them by answering, this is how you do it. Every single time you're telling them what to do, you're teaching them that they can't do it without actually coming to you. And then after that, you're following them behind and chasing every single thing that they're doing and, monitoring every single step. And that's really tricky, particularly in care, where it's very heavily regulated. You're worried about the CQC or commissioning inspectors coming to have a look at the service, and you're thinking, I want things to be just right for them. It's really hard to not micromanage, because all it takes, in our industry, it's really difficult because you're always one poorly documented outcome away from a safeguarding. And you're always one serious safeguarding away from, real concerns for your business and possibly even shutting down. So you're constantly thinking, I need to make sure that everything is on point. But the way to do it is to teach and enable people to be able to have that same vision that you have and have that same approach to how you're going to do things rather than micromanaging. So that's a really good question. Thanks for that. I've got someone there who said I could stop taking care recruitment inquiries rather train them on how to handle these calls accordingly if I'm not there. They'll usually say they'll pass the message on to me. Tricky though, because handling inquiries are very different day to day to dealing with externals, for example, district nurses. So again, it's, as I said, about having a very clear script about how people are going to manage this. Give them the instructions and give them the context. Why is it, that you talk to candidates in a particular way when you're managing the recruitment? What is it that you're looking for? How is it that you screen? What are the specific things that you're working towards? And that way people start to have an understanding of what your standards are. And when they do it, check with them. How did you manage that call? How did it go? How can we manage it differently next time? And allow them room to make mistakes. They're not always going to do it perfectly. So it's part of the letting go process. Somebody else there has said, stop doing things for the staff and empowering them. Although in dom care, it can be challenging as you'll be responsible person and registered manager. And when you release too many, you realize too many errors are happening, you end up taking over. I definitely recognize that. Definitely. It's something that I have experienced, that journey and that you let go, they make a mistake and you start to panic. So I think it becomes easier for you to in the short term, it's easier for you to jump in and fix everything. But what you have to think about is the long term. Again, what is it that you're training them to do? By you behaving in that way, they're thinking, oh, the registered manager is always going to jump in and save us. So I can go around and do whatever I need to do, because anyway, after all, the manager is going to come and fix it all if I make a mistake. Whereas if they do make a mistake, you actually talk them through it. And if you've been very clear with somebody from the beginning, if you've been clear about your instructions and you've put some safeguards around it, you know that they're not going to do anything beyond the specific instructions that you've given, because they're going to follow through that script, that procedure that you've explained to them. This is how you do it. And you're then actually sitting down and reviewing with them afterwards. I think that's probably the most important thing, because what I find, even as the company has grown, and even if I reflect back to my other experience in previous roles, because I've been in healthcare services for 30 years and have, managed different services right across the board. And at times, what you find is you've not been very clear with somebody from the beginning. Or let's put it this way, you've told them, you've given them a process, and they've gone away and done it. You've then turned your back and thought, oh, I've given it to this person, they're going to carry on and do it. And you turn your back and you start focusing on the next little fire that you're trying to put out. The challenge is, if that's the first time that person has done that, or you're just starting to release a level of responsibility, you don't know what their experience has been. And I think that's where the challenge comes, is people will often delegate and then they walk away. That's not the way to do it. The second bit is the really critical bit that brings it together, which is the coaching. And the only way you can coach is if you're actually sitting down and reviewing the instances as they happen. So don't just delegate, give it to someone and walk away. You have to make sure that you're constantly in there checking with them, how did it happen? And have systems in place where they're handing over to you, where, they're coming back to you and saying, this is how things went, these are the challenges We always say in our company, the good, the bad, the ugly. Everyone now knows that if we sit down and we have a conversation with them, we're going to ask them, what was the good, what was the bad, what was the ugly? That's something that is just part of our supervision. It's woven into everything that we do. So if you do actually delegate, make sure you're going to somebody and having those conversations. Once they tell you what the good was, you reinforce it, you actually give them other scenarios and other examples that they could use that particular good outcome in. The bad or the ugly is the challenging bit, or, really what would have been better? How could I have handled this better? And we find that that really works in terms of reflection and learning. Someone is saying letting go is very hard. May not be able to stop completely. I think it depends with the team. And then I may stop answering calls in the office, but still be present in the background. So it's still hard. And I completely agree with that. Trust me, I have really been in that situation. But unless you actually start trusting people, it is going to be difficult. The first two parts are the most critical. So being very, very clear with the instructions and the coaching is very important, because if you can get that right, then once you've actually coached somebody, get them to shadow you. You're talking about, the example you've given around answering calls. So the approach could be, if we use that as an example, you're the one who's always answering the calls. So actually start making a list of what the key issues are that come up when you're answering calls. Make a list of your responses, so the common responses. So, after a while in your office, it will be pretty much the same phone calls that you get. They're just rehashed and repeated. So it's either going to be inquiries from staff, it's going to be inquiries from clients themselves, it's going to be inquiries from family members, it's going to be referrals coming in, or it's going to be professionals contacting you. So social workers, district nurses, case managers, physiotherapists, OT, and so on. You get the point. So there's categories of people who are going to contact you for various things. So you need to almost maybe even do your own self-assessment of how you're managing and responding to each inquiry. You then sit down and you explain that to the people who you want to start taking the calls. Okay, these are the common scenarios that come in. These are the calls that we're often getting. And this is how I usually respond. That's how I would like you to approach this question. And you go through the various scenarios. What you then do, the next step is, by all means, like you're saying, you sit in the office and you listen to them. Let them actually deal with the concern. When they come off the phone, you have a conversation with them. How do you think that went? What could you have done better? Do you think this person responded to you in the way that you expected them to? And analyze that phone call and how it went. The next phone call, they're going to be applying that learning from the first phone call onto the next phone call. And I've actually seen this in action. This is, the phone call, the calls one is actually a very good one, because it's something that we have literally experienced in our company. So you then observe them and continue to feed back to them. This is how we could have done better, which way, to answer the calls and how to handle them and what to do next. So now you've answered the call. What do you do next? What's the action now you've taken that call? So you again take them through that. So you're there supporting them through it. And once you get to the, 10th call, 20th call, and you're confident that this person seems to be able to answer the calls in the way that I'm doing it, that's when you step back. So that coaching has happened. You've been clear with them around the instructions. You've done the coaching, and then you're going to trust them. And once you trust them, again, you put some safeguards. It could be that you have some sort of handover process that you decide to have. You say, okay, at the end of the day, if it's to do with answering calls, you're saying to them, I'd like you to feed back to me what calls did you get through the day? And, at the end of each day, I want to have a summary of the calls that have come through, whatever it is, whatever works for you, but you're having a way of getting feedback. So you're not actually just, letting them run wild, but there is that level of trust, and you're not physically answering each phone call yourself. I hope that makes sense, and it's something that you can give a try. And somebody,
Yes, thank you so much for that.
yeah,
Yes, thank you.
yeah,
I will have to try those steps you have just told me.
mm,
That's
mm,
very good. Yes, I will try
yeah.
them. Thank you so much.
That's good. That's good. That's good. I'm pleased that that's resonating and it's making sense. It's really, really difficult. And like I said, trust me, I've been there. And even now, where we have managed to step back from the business, we're still in that constant battle of micromanaging, firefighting, and wanting to jump in, because, like I said, it's your baby. It's your baby. Somebody has said, I think it's important to risk assess what the leave staff, what to leave staff to do on their own, and what to constantly monitor. That's a really important point as well. Thanks very much for that. So I think when you're starting this journey, again, going back to the example that we used just now, it's this, those are fairly small things that you're allowing staff to do. As you start to build the muscle of delegating and allowing staff to do more and more, you certainly do need to start to think, okay, what is it that I can actually delegate, and what is it that I need to do? And regardless, of how much work I'm doing, it's a priority and it has to be done by me. So it could be that, you're, I don't know, a particular meetings with a commissioner, you might decide that, no, absolutely not. This is not something that I can delegate to somebody else at this point in time. It's something that I feel that I need to do because of the stage of the business that we are at. And you're constantly risk assessing and seeing what the cost benefit will be of you doing that. Ultimately, what you want to do is for your business to be able to run itself. And what I'm talking about when I say that is, it's not about you turning your back. That you can't ever really turn your back on your business, because overall you're in charge. You do need to maintain overall accountability over everything that's going on, but that doesn't mean that you have to do everything in the business yourself. So you constantly have to be looking at, what else is it that I can delegate? And if you've made your list of all the things, watch yourself on a typical day. What is it that you're actually doing? Even if you just go through and write a list of what you do every single day, you'll be able to identify a group of things that can be done by somebody else in your business. And you'll be able to identify things that that these are very high risk areas, and it's not something that I, as the director or the business owner, can let go of this yet. So again, it's helpful to think about it in that context. Okay. That was a really helpful discussion. I really enjoyed that. Thanks for the feedback, and I hope that that was helpful for people. So just taking things forward, because we're rounding up now, coming to the end of the webinar. I think we've covered the one thing that you could stop doing for your team and coach them to handle it instead. That's the conversation that we've had. So as a takeaway, I always say to people, we all enjoy attending webinars these days, and there's so many of them. But it's important that every event that you go to, you come away with a takeaway, so that time that you've used is valuable. Because as a manager, director of your business, your time is very, very valuable. And you can't just be attending different events and coming away with nothing. So I think it's important that you actually take some sort of action from every event that you engage with. And my suggestion here today is that you take one thing that you could stop doing for your team and you coach them to handle it instead. Hopefully, I'm quite happy for some of you to come back to me and engage with me and let me know what you've done and how you've actually got on with that. I'm always really pleased to get involved in discussing things with people and discussing their businesses. So happy for you to contact me and do that. So that leads nicely into the next steps in terms of where we go from here. As I said, make the most of the information that we shared today. If you do nothing else and you decide that that's the end of our conversation, you take that away with you, you do something. But if you'd like to engage with me some more, I talked about Care Business Hub, which is where we all meet as care business providers. So we focus on people who are providing care services in the community. As I said, examples are home care, care homes, supported living, complex care, that sort of thing. And just supporting each other with how we can grow our businesses whilst continuing to deliver outstanding care, because that's what you want ultimately. You want your business to have outstanding care, your service to have outstanding service delivery, and you also want your business to be thriving and to be profitable. So those are the sort of things that we talk about. We look at leadership and team development. We look at things like SOPs, the standard operating procedures. How do you actually get those in place? And how do you get your business to grow and still be compliant? So we've got our community there that's recently been set up, brand new. I am actually giving a special offer to everyone who's attended the webinar today for you to have a month free in the hub, but I will send the details round later on. Well, probably tomorrow now. I'll send the details round to people so that you can find out a little bit more about Care Business Hub and decide if you'd like to join that and be part of this journey, this movement that we have going on at the moment. So again, thanks very much for attending. I do really appreciate and value people taking their time out of their very busy schedules, because as a business owner myself, I know it's not easy to find time to attend these things, but the importance is that it helps you to grow. It supports you in terms of, talking to people outside of your day-to-day and getting ideas. Quite happy for you to contact me either via Care Business Hub or via LinkedIn. I am available on LinkedIn. I'm quite prolific on there, so do feel free to reach out to me there. And I'll just end on that note saying that great care starts with great leadership, guys. So you are taking the right step in taking time out to support yourself and develop yourself as a leader. Keep doing that and keep finding opportunities to grow in your leadership journey. So thanks very much, everybody.